to our last topic of the day, because actually it sort of segues very easily into this aspect. And there was a question that Kibe asked, how comes we don't have our own World Cups? And this is in relation to, particularly when you look at our arts, our sports, our creative industry. I mean, we've touched on it, particularly talking about our food and language and a host of other things that identify us. How comes we don't have our own? And he was given, let me just finish up, just to give context. He was given the concept of rugby. And in that conversation they were having, Kibe with his co-host was asking, when I was in high school, we had a thriving rugby, sort of what would I call it, as an industrial sport. So where, there was a lot of talent coming out of high school, then it was going into the semi-professionals. But our rugby has been going through these cycles of ups and downs, where we get these calls from the local league to support the national team to participate in some of these international tournaments. Why is it that at one point we are, celebrating this guy, at the next point we are hearing they haven't been paid for months, they're not as strong as they used to be 3, 4, 5 years back, and then it has to go through this ups and down, and then let's start reviving it. Let's make rugby what it used to be. That talent again has been lost. So they're also sort of building up that talent again, afresh, the fan base and everything else. Why is it we haven't been able to build thriving leagues like the English Premier League, the Italian Premier League, either be it in rugby, in our football? Why is it that there haven't been these structures that ensure that these things continues on for years on end, and that it is gainfully employing those that are part of it, the talent, the supporting crew, all those elements?
I might put it down into 3. One would be corruption, not supporting the sports, because it is only probably a particular group that would want to be at the benefiting point. Then, if they don't have the skill, then nobody goes there to watch because there's no interest, because skill is not being shown. Yet the ones who have the skill do not have the persons to back them up. They don't have the resources to back them up to go up there. 2, we compare ourselves with the Western world or the modern world. And I tend to think they identify through ideologies. They don't have culture, they don't have tribes. Even if they're there, they're kind of weak, so they go by ideology. And that's what you will see with some of these clubs that you've just mentioned about. They go by ideology. We demonized our principal identity, which are our tribes or the nations. We demonized them. But they're the ones that make us really find this strong unity and identity. You get? Because you look at, for example, Kenya, as much as we have the league, the clubs that have stood the test of times are the ones that are identified by the tribes. Tell me if there is anyone that is identified by ideology that still exists. The strongest are almost identified. Probably if we reduce the demonizing what we identify by, then it can give us a sense of strongly believing into these things. Because now you have a small population or a population of the ones who are resourced. They don't support this because they don't want to identify by the tribe or the tradition. Then the ones who want to identify by it probably don't have the resources. So there is no gap. No, there is a gap, but there is no closing of the gap. My thinking, because Kibe also hinted on it, and he said, what if we would just have tribe or community A versus community B in a particular sport? Wouldn't it be nice? But we already have it in football. We have the Mashemajis and the Gor Mahia playing, And then the Kamba team, how do they call it?
I don't know if we have a Kamba team for football.
I know FC Leopards, mostly the Mashemejis,
Yeah. I
and
think
Gor
it used
Mahia.
to be predominantly Luya, Luo kind of a thing. I don't think these
Yes.
other tribes, puny tribes, have their own
And you find that
clubs.
they still have that interest of doing the games, even though the resources might not be there. But because probably the ones who will be funding it also don't, they fear to identify with the so-called tribal connotation. You know, I wish you would take it to nations rather than tribal connotation to try and make it better. So the interest probably is there, but we are losing what should identify us, because the moment you go ideology, again, you will throw it out of what majority of the people will identify with, which is the vernacular, and you'll have to put it into English, meaning that you have to mainstream it and get everybody to be an intellect, probably to be able to cement this ideology and get everybody backing the ideology. That's why even our politics is still tribal. We don't understand much of ideology. It is left for the for the for the you call them intellectuals.
I
Yeah,
don't know if they are
the
really
common
maybe we should even not give them that title, but
the
it's this.
common man goes by the kingpin.
I would probably call them this university dimwits, but it's true. And yeah, we've demonized, essentially we've demonized everything that represents who we are,
Us. Yeah.
us. I
Yes.
would probably add on to what you say, and this became so clear to me, I think, as I was thinking about it last week. I used to review jazz music. I used to have a blog,
Mm.
and I would buy a lot of jazz music and listen to CDs, and then review the artist, review the songs, and then post it on my blog. Um, in addition, I would attend a lot of jazz events, either at local clubs or concerts. Actually, one that I used to frequent a lot was the one that happens in Kampala, Jazz Safari, which is usually
Mm.
promoted by a guy called Shaka. The big platforms are in SA. You've got Joy of Jazz in Joburg, and you've got another one out in Cape Town. So I'd go out to most
Mm.
of these events and then listen, review them. And as when I got into it, I began to understand how that industry is constructed, and I understood all the various elements to it. You've got the events or the concerts, you've got the clubs, you've got the production of the music and the distribution of it, you've got the artist, you've got all these elements. You can see how new talent is recognized, nurtured, and promoted through some of these events, through some of the sort of grassroots events where you've got jam sessions and the like. Um, and it's the same with even sports or any other sector. You've got to piece all these elements to build a thriving industry. And I think what we've done, taking an example of something like rugby, is we've not effectively organized all these elements. And even much more, we've not organized them for local consumption. So I think, giving an example again of rugby, is these teams are built and oriented to participate in international tournaments. It could be the Dubai Sevens, could be the Las Vegas Sevens. But why did we not think of, for us to ensure we've got a thriving rugby sport, is let's one, build the league. And then two, let's build clubs. And then three, let's have regular fixtures. And then from those fixtures, let's have probably major competition, either at a regional basis, at a national basis. Um, and then from there, go ahead. Those clubs probably would be homed at a particular stadium that becomes their home. Let's begin building the fan base. Let's start looking for advertisers that can be looking out for eyeballs during the club matches. Uh, you know, corporations that then sponsor some of those tournaments, regional, international, a fan base that is then that is nurtured locally. And that fan base can again now begin affiliating itself either with one club over the other. And then you've got, like the Gor Mahia, and what's the other club? Gor Mahia and what?
FC Leopards.
FC Leopards, that kind of a
Yes.
thing. And then have tournaments. There used to be a Masaku 7 that was hugely successful, but then it just died. I think it didn't happen after 2 years. There should be a Safari Sevens. Remember, there used to be a Safari Sevens. Where is the Safari Sevens happening? And I remember those things when they used to happen on Ngong Road in Nairobi. There'll be people looking forward to them. But I think what was left is, I think the clubs, one, have died. You've got a national team that is not fully professional. You've got many of those talents still working full-time jobs and still participating, being a member of the national team. They haven't been paid for months because, again, the corruption you've just mentioned that is at the league level, the people who run that league, if anything, if you have to call it a league. And then they're only doing this to go to Dubai, to go to Safari Sevens. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but first and foremost, build that local consumption that will sustain your survival, that will ensure these guys are on a full-time payment and they are full-time athletes, because you've got, again, the sponsorships that are there on the pitch, sponsorships to the TV production and TV rights, all that. If you have to draw up, I get you. I hope you're getting the drift of what I'm saying. And then these guys could have those local fixtures that, today we're in Kisumu, tomorrow we're in the next event on next Saturday will be in Nakuru, the other one in BLD, the other one in Machakos, the other one in Nairobi, the other one in Mombasa, the other one in Garissa, and people are going to all these places. So you can imagine how much money is moving around. People have to sleep in hotels. People have to, drive there. People have to, merchandising. Think of all the business we can generate. The money is within us. We've just not figured out how to put a system in place that then can productize all these things and get money from Kenyans, Kenyan corporations, Kenyan individuals, a Kenyan fan who wants to get, instead of always looking to just get these guys to go showcase in Las Vegas, Dubai, in London, in Joburg, in whatever the place might be. So that's what we lack. We've not oriented ourselves towards local consumption. And I think you can take this, extrapolate this thinking to almost everything. If it is our coffee, as you're saying, there was orange, there's a porridge, all these things. That local piece is what is missing.
We have a challenge of monetizing what we have, probably. And there's barely interest in investing. We want like an immediate return. Then when you talk about sports, I would split it into two. There are sports persons who are skilled. Then there are sports persons who are talented. Now, the ones who are talented, in most cases, they are pushed to wait until they finish their formal education to now be able to exercise. Now, that robs something. I think the talent-based careers should be adopted early enough, because now we see that talent-based career is paying. They can start earning early. So now, this other education can be an additive to the talent-based career. What will that do? It is the one that will lead to having clubs that support talent-based career. Because at the end of the day, what do you want? Is it just to know English and do arithmetic, or be able to have income and also contribute to the nation? Which one are we doing? So we go more of this other one. So being able to monetize is a challenge. And the interest of investing is also another one. How long shall we invest? Because we should be able to have a plan. And sometimes the reason why our investment fails is because we invest on people who will not be productive when we need the returns. Why? Because we go for the people who are now elderly. You pick people after their formal education to now get into the talent-based career. Time is already wasted. They have not honed their, you muted. Time is wasted. They have not honed their talent. You know.
So you get
But if
them
you
when
started,
they are old.
yeah. So you
Mm-hmm.
start funding them after the formal education. By the time you need returns, they are not able to give those returns that they need. What if we started it early in the form of what you're calling clubs? Because if you see much of these sports that excel, or even if you look at the Asian communities that do well in Olympics, what do? They pick the very young kids below 18 to train them for Olympics in the next 2 seasons ahead. And by the time that time comes, the flag of the country is all over, known by everyone. People want to come and do training with you. You know, people want to go and tour this country. So they get returns in various ways. So I think we have that challenge of waiting for these talented people to go through the formal system. Then you start investing in them after the formal system. And by the time you need the returns, they cannot be able to deliver. However much they are talented, or probably what you say, they've developed the skill, but now it is a short time to invest and get the returns. But then also there is something that I see in sports. I don't know whether you've noticed it. To the poor families, indulging in sports is something for people who do not have a direction. They'll tell you go do formal education. Now, for those who have, they see it as a place where they can now be able to diverge from this system that is being championed by formal education.
But
Now, like you can earn from your talent.
yeah, exactly. I
For
mean,
them now, they look to hone the talent.
yeah,
The
that's
poor
true.
people look to hone their formal education.
Yeah.
So we need to get that middle ground where we say, don't shame talent. And let's have people who support talent for what it is. Then probably things will work out. Because if you notice, even with some of the international footballers, not all of them have formal education. Some of them cannot even speak English, but they're
Mm.
able to earn and change lives and contribute to revenue in their country. So we don't need to shame talent. And I think once identified early, then it should be supported in all ways, not at the end of formal education.
Great point. Great point. So one is identifying that talent at a very early stage and nurturing it uh,
Yes,
to effectively, sort of utilize it
yeah.
during that
So it
person's
matures,
productive age.
yes, it
And
matures in such a way that if you invest today and World Cup is in 4 years, in exactly 4 years you get returns because
exactly.
8 years before World Cup they were honing the talent.
It's like planting a seed. It's like agriculture.
Yes,
it has the sort of that gestation period of the
yes.
time you put the seed down. You'll have to be
The
continually
point you do the weeding,
fertilizing it, weeding it,
uh-huh.
all that. You can't
You cannot plant
short
you
circuit that process.
Yeah, you can't plant your seed 3 weeks to expected harvesting time and expect that it will grow and you harvest.
And you see, that's what we are doing, particularly with our rugby, because
Yeah.
these guys, when like now that call for us to participate, I even said no, I'm not going to put a single cent. Let it die. So that now
Mm.
we start looking at it for what it is.
Yeah,
Uh,
we need
and the point is, these guys had Dubai Sevens, or I don't know what tournament was coming up. We need to get
Mexico.
these people ready for it. And then these people are put through a quick crash course to go participate for it. And probably rugby is an easy game because it's not as competitive in terms of it doesn't have so many other countries participating. So I guess there's always a chance for our team to be called upon to be part
Actually,
of these
Andrew,
international matches.
do you know the mistake we do?
Yeah.
Sports is taken as a side hustle.
Oh, boom.
It's not
Boom.
a career
Boom.
because you have your day job and you assembled when there is need to go and play.
Exactly. Exactly.
So they say
Exactly.
the fixtures for Sekafa are almost out. Let's now get the footballers, you know.
While you should have had local clubs and then those academies
It,
that
it,
go
it
into
should have been ongoing.
primary, high school, ongoing. And I think there's something you mentioned is not demonizing uh,
Yeah, those that
talent,
we identify with. Yes, yes, not
and
demonizing
also
talent actually.
where, of course, you're saying the poor are pro formal education. The rich
Yes,
probably might have a bit of a leeway. They could let their sons or girls get into some of these sports.
they
But I
gain
think,
the skill, they don't have the talent.
yes, we've just seen, particularly if we look at our creative economy, particularly around the comedy scene. This is a fairly
Yeah,
young industry, and we've seen that it can pay. Most of these
yeah,
comedians are full-time comedians, and they organize comedy specials. They're either participating in Churchill live show. There's that platform. They create their own platform. I even realized that some of the comedians that come from Ukambani have their own platform, and now they're even giving
yes.
jokes in Kamba. So these guys, and you can see them growing now. They have careers around comedy, and then of course they have other auxiliary jobs that they start getting out of their comedy, like becoming influencers or promoters of products. So these are the other income streams, but they are all under their comedy talent. So I think now we are seeing an appreciation of talent. I think the reason why the poor people would have leaned more to formal is because the talents never used to pay. But if we have well organized sports sector, arts sector, which is gainfully employing people, then we can start seeing people realizing, oh, okay, no, it's fine. My son can be an actor. My son can be a comedian. My son can be a footballer. My son can be an athlete, etc., etc.
We need to monetize the talent. Then more people will follow the talent. You know, like what we said in spaces sometimes back. Let's recognize those who've been able to earn through talent so that they be able to get more people to use their talent to earn a living and also make a contribution to the society. Let's recognize them, but they don't have a platform.
They don't have a platform. Yeah, that's true.
They don't have a platform. So either we be the one to shout and blame no one, you know, and make sure other people can rally, and they also share their knowledge of being able to groom their talent to a point that it can be able to pay. Tell that to other people who have talent, you know, so that they know what they need to invest, for how long they need to invest, and when they will start seeing the returns, and where they need to how to position themselves to get those returns. Because these talented guys almost do it at individual basis. Check all our athletes, all our sportsmen. They don't have like an academy where it directs them where to cash or monetize their talent. It is like by chance. Even now the comedians, they are doing it by themselves, finding their way through hardships, you know, to be able to monetize their talent.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So
So those who've
anyway,
been able to make it
yeah,
through talent uh, hold hands of these other people, either by sharing how they went through the experiences and how they got to be where they are, how they are managing it, and how they are keeping the discipline. There's something we need to do about there's that topic of homeschooling. We can keep it for another day, but we need to talk about it.
Yes, homeschooling is the other topic, and we'll discuss that,
Ah,
I think, in our another call.
yeah,
I think now we've touched on some good topics. I think in between we were able to bring in the concept of knowledge transfer. Should it be verbal or through written? We've touched on also the topic of our identity and what has the lost identity of the African man and what that has meant. We've also gone into sports. We started off, of course, with side hustle. And I like the way you've been able to connect the two between the reason why our sports is not growing is because we see it as a side hustle as opposed to a main
yes,
hustle. And then that basically supports our case where why side hustle can never amount to anything if you decide to stick on with the side hustle and jump in ship to put your total focus on one thing. So, Paul, I just want to say thanks once again for joining me on this call. Um, let's
yeah,
let's
welcome.
let's find some time to connect and go deep into homeschooling and GBV and a host of other topics um, that we have lined up. So, thanks a lot. Have a good evening, and see you next time.
Thank you, and Happy New Year as well.
Happy New Year to you too.